Welcome to the worst sports channel on YouTube, Hot Garbage Sports with me, Coach Ryan D. Week 1 of the NHL is in the books. We're going to go Sunday to Sunday. We're going to talk about the best of all 32 teams in the NHL. I'm going to give you my power rankings. We're going to break down who the winners were, who the losers were, what are the biggest headlines, news, and notes from Week 1. So let's go ahead, roll that intro. We're going to do it by division. You're going to want to stick with us till the end, or your timestamps are down below if you just want to fast forward and see what's going on in the world of your division, your team, or your conference. Let's get after it, team.
Here's Lemieux. The center penalty coming up. Look at Lemieux. Oh my God.
And if you're new to this channel and an avid NHL fan, hit subscribe, smash the like button. We would love to have you here on Hot Garbage Sports. So starting with the Metro Division, let's go ahead. Boom. My ranking list for that week. Up top, this is based on expected team performance, the quality of opponents they faced, as well as some of the big news stories coming out from these teams. So let's start with the Penguins, shall we? First things first, Mike Sullivan has become the winningest coach in Penguins history. So congratulations, Sully. The Penguins are doing this without Sidney Crosby or Brian Rust on Saturday night. That's quite the feat. You got no Malkin, you got no Crosby, you got no Rust. You still got 2-0-1. So the Penguins look solid, and a big part of that goes to Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry is looking much more solid this year than he did in his playoff run last year. Hopefully, Jarry is the real deal. Fingers crossed for Penguins fans. The Penguins' quality of opponents was huge. They beat the Lightning 6-2. Then they end up losing to the Panthers in overtime 5-4. And the Chicago Blackhawks, finally, they roll through Marc-Andre Fleury 5-2. So the quality of opponents puts the Penguins on top, plus losing their superstars, and still they keep going. The Carolina Hurricanes, freshly signed Frederik Andersen comes on over. They lost Dougie Hamilton, but this is a team that is super deep at forward. We've talked about them for quite some time, but they come in knocking off the New York Islanders, the favorite, the powerhouse Islanders, so that is going to propel them to the top of my rankings board. And they obviously also beat the Nashville Predators, a team that can be a little bit tricky, but it's always interesting when you play those East-West crossovers. So they're number 2. Washington comes in at 1-0-1, and I still have them as number 3. They're a force to be reckoned with. Varlamov remains on the IR. Sorokin is in right now. They beat their rival, the New York Rangers. We're going to talk about the Rangers, but the Capitals, they can play a skill game. Tom Wilson didn't want to come out and see any shenanigans, and that worked out really well for the Washington Capitals. Alexander Ovechkin has an absolutely hilarious commercial, but what isn't hilarious is the fact that he has 5 points in 2 games. The Great 8 looks destined to beat Gretzky's record, barring any injury. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists in 2 games. Ovechkin is still arguably the best shooter in the NHL today. It's him or Matthews. Take your pick. The New Jersey Devils knock off the Chicago Blackhawks 4-3. Dougie Hamilton plays an amazing 25 minutes for the Devils, so they're already getting their money's worth out of Hamilton. And number 1 center Jack Hughes pots into this game. I think Hughes is going to take a massive step forward this year. Devils had a great offseason. I'm not sleeping on them. The Columbus Blue Jackets, no torts, no problems. They end up 2-0. They're a little bit lower in these rankings because, let's be honest, they beat the Arizona Coyotes. That team stinks. The Seattle Kraken, they had to make their first road trip out to the East. It was a 2-1 victory, very closely contested game. We're going to need to see more from the Blue Jackets before we launch them up any of these rankings. And when you play teams where you put up 8 points, big points come to players. So Bjorkstrand, Domi, 4 points each right now for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Laine is on the board with 3, only 1 goal, only. It's Laine. And Werenski is also there at 3. I don't expect these totals to hold. There's going to be very few 8-goal nights for the Jackets, but let's see. The New York Rangers, the new tough guys in the NHL. They go add Ryan Reeves and a bunch of grit because they got to get stronger. Tom Wilson beat them up. I don't know if that's going to work out well for the Rangers. I said it in our preseason preview. They lose to the Capitals, skill-based game. They lose to the Stars, skill-based game. And they beat the Montreal Canadiens, who are in a bit of a nosedive right now. Chris Kreider and Adam Fox are leading the team with points right now. Fox is in an elite class in the NHL right now. He's joined by guys like Makar, by McAvoy, by Dougie Hamilton. There are some elite young defensemen in the NHL right now. And if you got Adam Fox as number 1, that's fantastic. He is definitely in the elite tier of defensemen in the NHL. The Philadelphia Flyers lose to the Vancouver Canucks. Who knows what the Flyers are going to do? They're like a roller coaster ride. You think they're going to be great. They're not going to be great. They're up, they're down. We'll follow them all year. They're at the basement of this division. The New York Islanders 0-2-0. That is a big storyline in this division right now. Sorokin, .855 save percentage. That is not the start you want from your young goalie. They dropped two very difficult games to the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers, so no big deal. These are really elite teams in the NHL, but the Islanders are supposed to be an elite team as well. They need to win games like this. So 80 games left. I definitely think they're going to flip right back into the playoffs. They're going to have a very strong year. Trotz and the Islanders are extremely deep, but not the start you wanted, especially against two great teams in the East. Switching over to the Atlantic, it's the Big Cats, the Florida Panthers. Meow! Number 1 on the power rankings right now. They downed the Pittsburgh Penguins, handing them their only blemish of the season, as well as the New York Islanders. These were two incredibly tough tests for the Big Cats, and the Big Cats being led by Sergei Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky looks unbelievable to start the season right now. They needed big play from Bobrovsky. They got a .935 save percentage. And then don't forget about the players that stepped up. Ekblad and Weegar, they're looking like the number 1 pairing in the NHL right now after the first week. Alexander Barkov is taking another step forward. He's only +4 with 3 points this week and a monster in the face-off circle. And Carter Verhaeghe comes in with 3 points. Then we can't even forget about guys like Bennett and Forsling. This team is just absolutely stacked right now. 2-0, maybe the best team in the NHL. The Boston Bruins are number 2. It's only 1 game in, but they're 1-0 against the Dallas Stars. Jeremy Swayman stands on his head. I said I like Swayman more coming into this season than I did Ullmark. They paid Ullmark big money, but Swayman steps in and carries. I think Swayman's the future of this team. Speaking of future of this team, how about the monster deal from Charlie McAvoy, my number 1 defenseman in the NHL? This guy does everything for the Bruins, and this guy is absolutely going to be a Norris candidate this year. Take that one to the bank. McAvoy is on top of the elite defensemen across the NHL, and he gets paid like it. He deserves it. If we take the crap contracts like Carlson and Subban and all the old guys out of there, when we look at guys like Hamilton, when we look at Makar, when we look at McAvoy, when we look at Fox, McAvoy's contract signals he is in that tier. I have him slightly ahead. If you don't, though, that's okay. The Toronto Maple Leafs go 2-1-0 without Austin Matthews in the lineup. He should be returning this week. Not difficult games for the Leafs this week, but they get through it with a reasonable point total. Jack Campbell looks stellar. Peter Mrazek ends up getting hurt, but at the end of the day, haven't we seen enough Canada on Canada violence at this point? They have to play against the Montreal Canadiens and their arch rivals from across the province there. They end up splitting the battle against that team, and that's just, it's not what you want from the Leafs. But what else do you expect? The Leafs have trouble handling that team. I have no idea why. They have trouble with that team. So we're going to have to wait to see if when the Leafs get a little bit tougher challenge in the Atlantic Division and in the Eastern Conference to give them a more bump up in our ratings. Plus they need Matthews to return. The Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1-0, and oh boy, Nikita Kucherov leaves game with an apparent injury. We're going to keep tabs on that one right now. No Kucherov for the Lightning, probably puts them into the mid pack for the Atlantic Division, but hey, just in time to return to the playoffs to be 18 million or maybe over 9 million over the cap this year. Am I right? Unfortunately for the Bolts, they ended up in a shootout against the Detroit Red Wings. That's not what you're looking for, but they come out of it with a W, and that's what good teams do. 7-6. They dropped to the Pittsburgh Penguins and Tristan Jarry. Washington, they sneak through 2-1. This is probably still the class of the NHL. It wasn't the ideal start for the Bolts, but it doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish, and the Bolts are in a totally different class than anybody else. Any team that I say it's important that you get a hot start, these are teams that haven't won in a while. The Bolts are in the middle of a dynasty. They've proven to us they can do it time and time again. This team has chemistry. Doesn't matter how they start. They just got to get into playoffs. They also need Kucherov to be healthy. The Buffalo Sabres are 2-0. And the world burns. Melanie Martin sings a song and she's probably very happy, along with the rest of Sabres fans. So about time. It's been embarrassing. It's been hard. great start for Buffalo. You beat Montreal, you beat Arizona, two teams where I'm going to say, not the most difficult, but it doesn't matter. You just need wins in the book. So the Eichel drama continues. I hear a trade is inching closer. We read that every single day. Buffalo's 2-0. They are not moving up in this rankings until they show us they can do it. You know what? Frankly, they'd have to do it all year, and maybe we'll move them up by this time next year. But great for Buffalo 2-0. The Detroit Red Wings are 1-0-1, and Stevie Yzerman is at it again. Yzerman is known for building absolute monster players in the draft. Tyler Bertuzzi steps in, has a monster game one. He leads the team with 5 points. I don't think Detroit's going to do a ton this year in the Atlantic, but with Stevie Yzerman under the helm, they're going to take a step forward. Nedeljkovic looks like he's going to be their goalie of the future, and I think the Red Wings are going to return to form in the next couple years. I'm a little worried about them because Stevie Y is behind the helm as president. And the Montreal Canadiens come in losing to the Leafs, losing to the Sabres, losing to the Rangers. That is not the start you want if you're the Habs. Carey Price, fortunately, still needs some time in order to get right. Jake Allen is a fantastic backup, but Montreal's depth, we talked about it. They got 6, maybe 9 of the best wingers in the NHL. I love Suzuki, but missing Weber, missing Price. This isn't the start you want for the Habs. They look tired from their run last year. Hopefully they can turn it around, but starting 0-3 is a real hole to be in, especially when you have 2 free points against the Buffalo Sabres that go down the drain. Montreal is going to have to claw and fight to get back into this. In the Central Division, the Minnesota Wild take the top spot, doing exactly what the Minnesota Wild have been built to do and build to do. Built and build. The Wild are 2-0, knocking off the Ducks and the Kings. Those are 2 free points for you when you're going into California. You need to win those games. Minnesota wins those games. The Ducks, they beat 2-1. The Kings, they beat 3-2. These are only 1-goal games against teams in the NHL that aren't that good, but Minnesota is built to win with goaltending. Cam Talbot's got a .950 right now. They're built to win low-scoring games. They're built to beat you up, and they're built to last and roll into the playoffs. So Minnesota doing exactly what they're doing. This is going to be a force in a Central Division. The Blues knock off the Avs, putting them in number 2. This is going to be a logjam of division. We talked about it in our Central Division review. Link is above. The Blues end up knocking off one of the best teams in the NHL 5-3. That automatically puts them into number 2. Will it sustain all year? Likely not, but this is week 1 in review. We have a small sample size, and the Blues have to go ahead of the Avalanche after knocking them off. Speaking of the Avs, they can't fall too far down the ranking list. They are the Avs after all. They beat the Blackhawks 4-2, and the Blues, they end up losing as we just talked about. The one key thing about the Avs is even without Devin Toews, you see Brian Boehm stepping up, and it's just replace one with the next. The depth of the Avalanche is just unparalleled. The big question we had going in is, how was Darcy Kemper going to fare? Darcy Kemper has about a .902 right now in save percentage. That's not what you're looking for from Kemper, especially with the top 6D that he has in front of him. This team as a whole is built to be able to win defensively and from the net out. But Kemper replacing Grubauer, maybe it's going to take some time for him to get going. I speculate that Kemper is better of a goaltender than Grubauer, but it's always hard to tell when you have a goaltender coming from a weak franchise like Arizona. The Dallas Stars knock off the Rangers and then can't get out of their own zone against the Bruins. The Bruins are a really deep team though. Okay, no, the Bruins have one really good line and a very good D-core, but all in all, the Bruins play a very tough team game. So this is a tale of 2 teams right now for Dallas. Dallas has a lot of firepower. Looks like they're a little settled in goaltending, and that was the one big nervous point for Dallas going in. So 1-0-1 for the Stars. They're mid-pack, basically like we thought they would be. And then the rest of the Central Division is utter trash. What a bad start for the Blackhawks, the Predators, the Yotes, and the putrid Winnipeg Jets. If you want Winnipeg Jets breakdown, the link is above. They are always in full detail, but the Hawks severely underperforming at 0-2-1. The Preds 0-2, but we kind of saw that coming. They got Saros, they got Yossi. After that, it's not that great. And then Arizona 0-1-1, but they're ahead of the Jets. Unbelievable. So the division that's supposed to be the logjam has 4 teams in the top half, 4 teams in the bottom half. Pretty even split. All right, let's go ahead and drop in the Pacific Division. The Edmonton Oilers are on top, but grain of salt, it's the Canucks, it's the Flames. These are teams the Oilers are very familiar with playing. We really do want to see the Oilers test themselves against some of the American teams. They're very familiar with their rival from Alberta. They're very familiar with the Vancouver Canucks. Starting with the Canucks, Connor McDavid, 2 points. Then we move over to the Calgary Flames. Connor McDavid, hat trick. Basically, we're talking about Connor McDavid. No, I'm just kidding, Edmonton fans. You hate when we only sit on McDavid. Puljujärvi is looking incredibly strong on a line with Connor McDavid. Leon Draisaitl is looking fantastic, passing the puck to Connor McDavid. What a shot off the draw from McDavid. This guy does not have one of the best wrist shots in the NHL. He's got a very fluffy one-timer, self-admitted as well too, but that was a humdinger of a shot in order to get his hat trick. McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers look incredibly strong right now. Mike Smith looks really good. The bottom six looks improved. This may be the best team in the Pacific Division, but pump the brakes, Oilers fans. We got to see them play the Yankees. Sharks are 1-0. They end up knocking off the Jets. They were down 2-0. The Sharks end up scoring shorthanded. Cogliano over the shoulder of Hellebuck, and then that's all she wrote. 4 unanswered from that mark to take the game 4-3 over the Winnipeg Jets. They looked really good and capitalized in the second and the third period when the Jets went to sleep. The Sharks stuck with their game. Sharks are 1-0. I don't suspect they're going to hold this second spot right now in the ranking system because I know I got a lot of Kraken and I got a lot of Knights fans going, what the heck? The Kraken are 1-1-1, but every game was decided within a goal. They lose 4-3 to the Golden Knights in one of the best NHL home openers I've ever seen, in one of the best NHL season openers I've ever seen. They beat the Nashville Predators, getting their first win 4-3, and they go down 2-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not a big deal. It's an Eastern Conference team. This team looks like they're going to be for real. Their second, third, and fourth line are very deep. Their top 6 defensemen are reasonably deep. Their goaltenders are reasonably deep. I still have major questions over Grubauer. I have way less questions over Drieger. I just don't think Grubauer is as good as advertised, but he's played all 3 games. He has a sub 900 save percentage right now. It's .894. Grubauer has the ability to look great in front of a dominant team, but we got to see how Grubauer does with a team like the Kraken because they just don't have the defensive or offensive talent that the Colorado Avalanche had. And when he played with Washington, again, very dominant team as well as in a backup role. So this is his game to steal, and this team could absolutely be 3-0 if Philip Grubauer was able to stand on his head. And new Kraken fans might be going, look, it's a team effort. Grubauer didn't lose us the game. Totally agree. But Grubauer is paid as your franchise player right now, meaning when you have a goalie of his quality, you do expect him to steal a couple. So he didn't steal against the Columbus Blue Jackets. He didn't steal against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's okay. It's what's supposed to happen. But you want to make it to the playoffs, you got to do what you aren't supposed to do. Makes sense? Probably not. Vegas Golden Knights 1-1-0. Don't worry, they're going to move way up this list and contend with the Edmonton Oilers at the top all season long. This team is way too deep, but they did lose to the Los Angeles Kings. I don't know what it is about the California teams all of a sudden. The California teams are getting tricky. The Kings, the Ducks, the Sharks, they're doing things they're not supposed to do yet, but it's early in the season. As my buddy Mike in the comments likes to point out, teams that are young, not sure if they're supposed to win. They usually come out like a house on fire. Veteran teams start off a little bit slow. We'll see if Mike's right. Then that moves us into the Ducks, who are 1-1-0. They end up beating the Jets. Trevor Zegras looks like a number 1 centerman. Jamie Drysdale is going to enter the echelon of elite defensemen. You watch, he is going to join Makar, Fox, McAvoy. Not this year, but he's going to be there in 1 to 2 years. This guy's a freaking stud. McTavish scores his first goal in the NHL. Who knows what's going on in the NHL? The whistle goes. You can hear the whistle going. That usually calls it for a dead play. But then all of a sudden they say, nah, the puck was moving. That should be a goal. And yeah, it should be a goal. Yeah, the whistle shouldn't have gone. But once the whistle goes, the play is over. The NHL is an extremely confusing place when it comes to refereeing and rules. The Canucks, 1-1-1. The only team they beat were the Flyers. To me, that's not the best sign. They lost to the Red Wings. I think the Canucks are a much better team than the Red Wings. They lose to the Oilers. That's not a big deal. You beat the Flyers. You're supposed to beat the Flyers. So I have you near the basement. You're not overperforming. You're not underperforming. Actually, you are underperforming. You lost to the Red Wings. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, but it's early in the season. They're going to move up past the California teams, but for right now, they got to be in the bottom. Calgary, of course, because they end up losing the Battle of Alberta to Edmonton, they have to be on the bottom. They haven't won a game yet. Calgary's going to move up this ranking as well, too, so don't worry. Canucks and Calgary fans, don't get too offended. Your teams are going to skyrocket up there, but Calgary got handled by the Oilers in the Battle of Alberta. Physically, mentally, Daryl Sutter plays a tough brand of hockey, and they tried to beat up the Oilers. The Oilers responded by scoring goals. That headbutt, That was a little dirty, like very dirty, if I'm not saying so myself. I think the league's going to look at that one, but it doesn't really matter whether they do or don't. They're completely inconsistent anyway, so they're consistent being inconsistent. All right, that is the NHL in week 1. We will see you next Sunday for the NHL in week 2.